Okay, good evening. I don't know why you can't see me. Not sure. I'm sorry, there's this weird, I'm on a different computer. So I'm not sure why I can't be seen.
As long
Let me
as
see.
we can hear you, it's okay.
Yeah, I know, but this weird sun kind of thing is coming out.
Okay, so the sun's coming out at night. That's always good. It's like
Yeah,
pre-Hanukkah.
yeah.
We're lighting up the darkness.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
just leave it
don't
like
worry
that.
about it. It's okay if we hear you.
Okay.
We know what you
Looks like
look
something
like.
a prophet would see.
I'm sorry.
Looks like something a prophet would see.
That's right. Okay, let me see if I can claim host. Okay. 886-700. Okay. Say there. Hope everybody had a good week. Um, Very hectic week for everybody. Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. Let me see if I can get to my thing here. Uh, it's to allow the picture on every unit. Okay. See if I can share my screen. Go back to my Zoom. Make this small. This is a different computer. That's one of the reasons why it's so complicated. Make it smaller. Go back. Sorry. Okay. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you, but
Loud
we
and
can't
clear.
see a shared screen.
Okay, so unfortunately, that's also going to be a complicated matter. Let me see
So
if I
also
can.
we hear you. It's okay. It's always good to hear you.
Okay, thank you. It means you're going to have to use more of your own Tanakh tonight. So that's just going to be the way it is.
Can't
Uh,
see you.
I
We
know.
know. Okay. We
I
know that. It's
mentioned at the
okay.
beginning that I'm using. I left my computer in school today, so I'm using a different computer that's not like all, and somehow it's not clued in yet to my video. So you're gonna have to listen. Okay, let's start. And again, unfortunately, not going to be able to share the screen either. So everyone should please make sure they have Tanakh open with them. Um, so last time we focused on chapter 4, which basically presented to us four ma'asim simliim, four symbolic acts that Yechezkel was asked to engage in. In chapter 4, first of all, he was asked to take a levena, he was asked to take a brick, and on that brick to outline Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem. We know from, as I mentioned, we know from archaeology that this was not an uncommon thing. They've discovered bricks in the Middle East. Um,
Bricks would have been writing pads, though, wouldn't they?
is Jerusalem, and he builds a series of ramparts. He builds battering rams. He builds solelot. He builds ramps, and he does all these things as symbolic of the fact that the city is going to be sieged and come under siege, and he's supposed to put a big, not a big, but a piece of metal, which either between himself and the brick, either to symbolize that he is the enemy, or that God is not going to come to help them. The second thing that he was asked to do in chapter 4 is to lie on his side for 430 days. The first 390 on the left side, 40 days on the right side. We discussed the symbolism of that. The third act that he was asked to engage in was to create this what we today call the Ezekiel bread, made out of all kinds of grains, which in that culture was seen as very, very poor man's bread. It was seen as a bread because you didn't have enough flour on its own, and fine flour, that you had to put in all kinds of fillers like lentils and beans and other things into the bread to make a substantial flour. That was the third act. And the fourth act, which again, all of this is pretty clear what its meaning is. It means that there's no real need to kind of unpack the mashal, to unpack the parable, because what it means is that the city of Jerusalem is coming under siege. The enemies are attacking. The city he's going to be under a lot of pressure for a long time, symbolic of the time, the sins that the Jewish people have engaged in for all those years. Yom Lashana, explicitly one day corresponding to the year. And we talked about the years having to do with the years in Egypt, and that Yechezkel is hinting here that already the sins began in Egypt and during the time of Egypt, and that this is similar to the sins that the Jewish people did then. The third act of eating this bread and water is basically the idea that there's going to be a reduction in any way of getting good, fancy food, and the food storage and the food stuff is going to run out.
But I do agree with you. It's the offense, period. Because he was, like I said, he played fine against Dallas. He was okay. He had his issues against Chicago.
Excuse me, I think some.
The offense, and I think Kevin Patullo.
Does somebody have something on in the background?
Because last year.
Does someone have something? Okay. We finished.
Excuse me, Rabbi, but it seems to me like somebody else is in charge. Nati, and
that's me.
You cannot come on.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's
yes,
Nati.
I can hear
He's
you,
Nati.
but you are.
He's Nati.
I'm Nati. Okay. Finally, in chapter 4, we finished with the fact that he made a bread, a cake out of seorim, out of barley, which was again animal food in many of those cultures. And the fact is that and it was made on dung, on excrement, and the fact that they would not have firewood and that they would not be able to live in a dignified way. That's where we got to. Tonight, we begin chapter 5. Chapter 5 has the final symbolic act, which is the first 4 Pesukim of chapter 5. So everyone should please make sure they have Yechezkel in front of them. So chapter 5 is going to discuss the final symbolic act, and then it's going to so to speak, unpack that final symbolic act, and it's going to describe and discuss what exactly are the sins that the Jewish people are being accused of, and what is the focus of Yechezkel. As I go through the text, I want to highlight. I'd like to highlight. Let me just cancel this. Okay, and I want to highlight. Let me see if it will work now. The sharing, no, it just does that. Okay, so I would like to highlight the keywords and ideas that emerge in chapter 5, looking at it and also comparing it to passages in the Torah. Okay, so that's going to be our agenda tonight in terms of what is happening and what's not happening. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a look in chapter 5. Again, as I said, everyone should have it in front of them, be able to follow along. So chapter 5 starts off with, let me just make this small. Okay. Chapter 5 starts off with, V'ata ben adam, kach lecha cherev chada, ta'ar hagalavim tikachenu lecha, v'avarta al roshcha v'al zkanecha, v'lakachta lecha moznei shnekel v'chilaktim. So chapter 5 begins with a command to take a sword, a very sharp sword. And again, it's not a sakin, it's not a knife, it's a sword, which again is very evocative because a sword is, of course, something that's going to be used in battle generally. It's not used. But here he's commanded to take the sword and use it as a vehicle to shave all of his hair off. And you should take the hair and put it on a scale. Remember, in the ancient world, how you had a scale, you had on one side, you might have a rock that was, weighed 5 pounds. And if you had enough stuff on the other side, then you tried to weigh it out, how you would get to that. And what are you supposed to do with that? So you're supposed to take this ta'ar, kach lecha cherev chada ta'ar, a very sharp razor. This sword is acting as a razor, tar hagalavim, the razor of the barbers. And you're supposed to go and cut off your hair. And you're supposed to divide it into 3 parts. Shlishit ba'ur tav'ir b'toch ha'ir. Notice the play on words. It doesn't use the word shlishit ba'esh. Take a third and burn it in the fire. But it wants to use the alliteration and the sound play.
Your sound is out.
In the fire, literally. Make sure that you are able.
We've lost you. You have to go back. You lost you.
You don't have me?
Now we do.
Okay.
Your
So
sound is cutting in and out.
Okay. I'm trying my best. I'm sorry. Okay. So I'll make sure I'll make the as high as I can. Okay. Beseder, make it as loud as I can. That's all I can do. Okay. So basically, he's being told that this is what he's supposed to do. Take a third of this and a third of that. And he is supposed to, the text continues. I want to be very careful on the language here. Shlishit ba'or tavir b'toch ha'ir, v'lakachta tashlishit, takeh b'cherev svivoteha. Another third, right outside, and again, I want to explain, what does it mean, put it on the fire in the city? It means to put it on top of the brick. The brick is the city. The city is the brick, right? He's outlining the city in the brick. So he's symbolically going to put a third of the hair on the brick, which represents the city. A third he's supposed to spread out around the brick and hit it with the sword, takeh b'cherev, v'ashlishit tizreh laruach. And the other third you shall scatter to the winds. V'cherev arik achareim, and I will send a sword after them. Now I want to say 2 things here which are very significant. Number 1, very clearly the Bible here is outlining, is hinting at, there's going to be 3 elements of the punishment. There's going to be the destruction of the city itself, the hair that's in the city. There's going to be the suffering of the people who live around the city, the suburbs, the people who try to escape. And then there's also going to be the galut. There's going to be those who are going to be sent out to the wind. So you have three different parts of the punishment, of the suffering that is going to occur to Jerusalem with the upcoming Hurban Habayit. Number two, I actually want to say three things on this pasuk. Number two, the language here is very evocative of the sin of the golden calf. If you remember the sin of the golden calf, there too, the Bible uses the terminology of that he spread it, vayizra, he spread the ashes into the water. Moses took a cherev with the Levium, with all of the Levites, and he took out his sword. And all these images here are evocative of destruction because of avodah zarah, because of some sort of sinning related to idolatry in some way. Number three, I want to point out here that in this context, it also, okay, so 1 second. Yeah, it also breaks the mold. Meaning, if you look at verse 2, it seems that we're talking about the mashal still. We're talking about the mashal. Shlishit ba'ur, tav'ir b'toch ha'ir. Take a third of the hair and put it on the brick, which represents the city. A third take and smite it, smite the hair that's around the brick. And a third you should spread, throw to the wind to represent the galut. But then it says, v'cherev arik achareh. It should say that you, Yechezkel, should do it. But God, it breaks the mashal. God already gets involved and says, I will send a sword after him. It's almost as if the mashal is so obvious and so pregnant that the Navi and the text and God kind of break through. V'cherev arik, I will. It's in the first person. It's talking about God. God all of a sudden breaks into the mashal and already starts to give the nimshal. And one also thinks at this point, with verse 3, that everything, all the suffering has ended, because verse 3 says, V'lakachtam misham ma'at b'mispar. You should take a little bit of the hair that's left, v'tzarta otam b'knafecha, and put it into the corners of your cloak. So it sounds like there's going to be a small remnant that's going to remain in Jerusalem, and they're going to be okay. But then in the very next line, umehem od tikach v'hishlachta otam el toch ha'esh v'sarafta otam ba'esh mimenu teitzei esh el kol beit Yisrael. 3 times the word esh, fire. Even after there's a remnant, that remnant also is taken and thrown into the fire, which means that don't think that after the Hurban happens, that it's going to be honky-dory for the remnant that remains in Jerusalem. In fact, we know there was a tremendous amount of problems with the remnant that remained in Jerusalem. The people in Jerusalem who wanted to live there was civil war. We have Tzom Gedalia. We have the people who were pro-Babylon, anti-Babylon. There was all kinds of problems that occur in the reality of what was that period of time. So the text ends on a downer. I would have thought that after all of the destruction and Hurban and suffering and the galut and all that the remnant would be able to remain, and it may also here be Yechezkel is hinting at the fact that later on, we're going to see later on in the book that many of the people who remained in Jerusalem, they think that everything is going to ultimately be okay with them. Because obviously, if they remained alive in Jerusalem, it means that God has favored them and they're okay and they're the good guys. And part of what Yechezkel is going to try to teach them is no, they're not the good guys. And they're also going to suffer in terms of their experience. Okay, that is the end of the 5 symbolic acts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God commanded Yechezkel to do. Again, last week at the end of class, we discussed whether these events actually happened or they didn't actually happen. Is it only a prophetic vision, or is it actually that he went and slept on his side for 390 days on one side and 40 days? Did he actually cut off all his hair? Did he actually do this or not? I mentioned to you, Rambam takes the position that this is all symbolic and this is all in a dream scene, as opposed to others who took the view that no, many of these things may have actually taken place in real life. We now go to the second half of chapter 5, which is chapter 5, verse 5 through verse 17. And here, Yechezkel introduces a couple of new elements.
Nati, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is it possible that the removal of hair is to make them look less, to remove their beards, which characterize them as Jews, and make them more like Persians?
Well, remember, we're not Persians yet. Babylon is controlling the situation. Persia is not for another, 60 years, 50 years. I don't know. I don't know enough about the cultures of Babylon at the time. I don't think, we may be retrojecting our own biases about how we experience in the modern world Jews as opposed to non-Jews. I don't know. I think many non-Jewish cultures also had beards. So I don't know enough about it to answer anything intelligently about that. I'm sorry. Okay, so now let's go back and let's go analyze this. To understand the rest of this section, what I want to do quickly is I want everybody. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, I want to go back for a second. If everybody can open their Tanakh to the book of Vayikra, to the book of Leviticus 26, because you can't understand. One second. Sorry. You can't understand this chapter without going back to Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26, Vayikra Chavav, is a description of what we call the brachot and the kalot. The first time the Bible gives a very detailed account
Your voice isn't coming through.
and the description of that. So I want to just highlight a couple of important pesukim. So if everybody opens up their Tanakh back to Vayikra Perek Chavav. So the Bible starts there with the parsha Perek Chavav pasuk Gimel, chapter 26, verse 3. Im bechukotai telechu vet mitzvotai tishmru v'asitem otam. So if you keep the covenant, and specifically the covenant is described, the mitzvot are described as chukim and mitzvot. The distinction that we have today in our mind, that chukim are laws that have no rational basis, and mitzvot are laws that have, is a medieval construct. In the Bible, that distinction does not exist. Chukim refers to mitzvot that come on a regular basis. Chok miyamima, it's something that comes on a regular basis. Mitzvot just means regular mitzvot. And God promises material success, material wealth, and you'll have rain, and you'll have food, and you'll be successful in the land. And in describing that, it says in verse 6, v'natati shalom ba'aretz u'shchavtem ve'ein macharid. You'll be able to sleep and not be afraid. V'ishbati chayei
We're losing you again. We can't hear you.
There'll
We're going to
be
have to go
no-
back.
The Bible describes this kind of idyllic situation if you keep the covenant. On the other hand, starting with verse 14, the Bible describes what happens if you don't keep the covenant. If you don't keep the covenant, and the key word here is lo ta'asu, right? You don't do the mitzvot. That's the terminology. Ve'im b'chukotai. Where is the reference? I'm sorry, chapter 26. Chapter 26. Okay, so in bechukotai timasu, if on the other hand, bechukotai timasu, if on the other hand you reject vet mishpotai tigal navshechem, we have an introduction of an interesting term, mishpatai, your mishpatim. Not only mitzvot and chukim, but now we have the concept of mishpatim. L'ilti asot et kol mitzvotai, afani aseh lachem bifkariti alechem behala. God says He's going to bring all these terrible, terrible things upon you, all these different diseases, and that's chapter 26, verse 16, 17. 18. And then the Bible describes what's going to happen in addition to that. The skies are going to become like barzel. They're going to become like steel and iron, and they're not going to have all these things coming. And then the Bible says in verse 22, Vishlachti bachem chayar hasadeh. In contrast to the blessing, where you'll be able to live without any of these animals attacking you, now the animals will attack you, and you'll have a very difficult situation. If you continue to do this, the Bible describes that there'll be an attack. In verse 25, V'aveiti aleichem cherev nokemet nekam brit, and v'shilachti dever b'tochechem. I'm going to send a pestilence. So there's going to be plague. There's going to be disease. I'm going to destroy your food supply. B'shivri lachem matei lechem. When I destroy your food supply, and you're not going to have enough food. If you continue to reject the mitzvot, God ups the ante and speaks about cannibalism. Verse 29. This is the worst vision that we have in the Bible. Ve'achaltem besar b'neichem ubesar b'notechem tochelu. You're going to end up eating the flesh of your children, ostensibly after they've died of disease or of famine. And God says, at that point, I'm going to destroy. In verse 30, it uses a term for avodah zarah, which is unique in the Bible. It's only used once here in the Bible, v'hishmat in the Torah, excuse me. V'hishmatati et bamotechem. I'm going to destroy your bamot, your altars. V'chrati et chamanechem. I will destroy your idols. V'natati et pigrechem al pigrei gilulechem. And I will put your avodah zarah called Gilu Lechem, either because Galal meaning
excuse me, can you please go back? We've lost you again, so I'm losing you. And so are we all.
Sorry, I don't know what to do. Let me go out and come back, okay? I'm just going to try to go out and come back and see if it's better, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
you're fine. Don't
Okay.
worry. Don't worry.
Okay. Maybe use your phone. I'm not going to use my phone. That's even more complicated here. Let me see. 1 second.
We're getting 99% of what you're saying, so I wouldn't worry about it. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. Again, if there's something that's unclear, please. Okay. So we're in chapter 26. I tried to show that the Bible describes a number of things in the context of upping the ante. God is escalating. First, he talks about the fact that there will be disease if you don't keep the covenant. And it talks about the fact that you'll have attacks. And it talks about the fact that if you continue not to keep the covenant, that there will be cannibalism. And it continues and talks about the fact that you will be killed in front of your avodah zarah. In front of your avodah zarah, that's where you'll end up. And your cities will be destroyed. And the Bible uses the terminology of shmama, of desolation. In chapter 26, verse 32 and 33, Ve'etchem ezareh bagoyim, and God says, I will spread you out amongst the nations. Vaharikoti acharechem cherev, v'haita artzachem shmama. That language is the language that Yechezkel borrowed. I already mentioned the idea of being spread out, ezareh, is already in Yechezkel. So now, let's come back to Yechezkel and actually read the second half of chapter 5, and we'll see that so much of the language and the themes of chapter 26 of Vayikra are being used by Yechezkel here, which of course means that what he's trying to convey is that the Hurban and the Galut that the Jewish people are going to experience in a few years, that he's warning them that the Tochacha that you know, the reproof that you know from the Bible is happening now. This is the moment of the fulfillment of the Tochacha. That's the theological statement that he's trying to make here. And that's a very far-reaching theological statement. So let's take a look at chapter 5 from verse 5 on. Ko amar Adonai Elohim zot Yerushalayim, back to Yechezkel. Zot Yerushalayim betoch hagoyim samtiha usvivotea aratzot. I put Jerusalem in the midst of all these other nations, and I wanted it to be special. I wanted it to be different. I wanted it not to simply be like all the other nations surrounding it. Vatamer et mishpatai l'rish'a min hagoyim. This is a theme that is unique to Yechezkel more than any other prophet. And you rebelled against my mishpatim and my chukim, just like the language of Yechezkel of Vayikra, chapter 26, even more than the nations surrounding you. Meaning, the Bible up until this point has talked about the sins of the Jewish people, and it talks about how maybe you followed in the ways of the nations of the world. But now Yechezkel goes one step further. You are even worse than the nations of the world. L'risha min hagoyim, vet chukotai, you rebelled against my chukim, min haratzot asher svivoteha, ki v'mishpatai ma'asu v'chukotai lo halchu bahem. This is basically a rewriting of the beginning of Parshat Bechukotai. The im bechukotai telechu. If you follow in my dictates, then this and this and this will happen. If you don't follow, then this. Here it's bechukotai lo halchu bahem, which is the exact opposite of im bechukotai telechu. And now we have the continuation. Lachein ko amar Adonai Elohim yan hamanchem min hagoyim, because you were worse than the goyim. Bechukotai lo halachtem, vet mishpatai lo asitem. You didn't do my thing. V'chemishpatei hagoyim asher sviotechem lo asitem. You didn't even do the good things that the nations of the world do. So, if I could show you on a chart, if I could, I would show you that there's almost like a chiastic structure here. He starts off with, you rebelled against my mishpatim, and mishpatim, and then you went to the chukim, and God says, "B'chukotai lo halachtem, chukotai lo halchu behem, b'chukotai lo halachtem, vet mishpatai lo asitem, v'chemishpati hagoyim asher lo asitem." The key word here is asiyah. You didn't do anything. Lachein ko amar Adonai Elohim. Therefore, says God, Hineni alayich gam ani. I personally will act against you, just like in Vayikra chapter 26, where the Bible uses the image of God Himself coming. Af ani eyeh imachem bikeri. I will act this way to you. God says, and in contrast to what you didn't do, lo asitem, lo asitem, lo asitem. You didn't follow my ways. You didn't do my mishpatim. You didn't even do the good things. Ve'asiti b'tochech mishpatim le'enei hagoyim. It's a wonderful little play on words. If you remember from the Haggadah of Pesach, remember that the word mishpat, the word lishpot, the word to judge, the word mishpatim means mitzvot, means commandments, means laws, but it also means punishments. If you remember from the Haggadah, ubechol Elohei Mitzrayim e'eseh shvatim, I will bring punishments on all of the gods of Egypt. So here the Bible is making a play on that. Yechezkel is saying, you did not do your mishpatim, the mishpatim that I asked you to do, ve'asiti betochech mishpatim le'enei hagoyim. Therefore, I will do justice in front of the nations to you. You didn't do mishpatim, so I will do punishments, mishpatim, to you. So there's a very kind of nice twist of the phrase here. Ve'et asher lo e'eseh, v'asiti b'cha et asher lo asiti, et asher lo e'eseh kamohu. Oh, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. Meaning, the Bible here is echoing that the punishment that is going to come is something that has never happened before. It's something that's never happened before. It's a kind of reversal of Yetziat Mitzrayim. The Bible describes the Exodus from Egypt as a time of something that had never happened before. Many of the makot, many of the plagues, were things that had never ever been seen before in history. And we describe the Exodus as something that is unique. Have we ever heard of a God who takes a people out of another people? All these things. Here it's reversed. Before
Okay.
Plays off of Vayikra chapter 26. It continues and says, Lachain avot yochlu banim bitochech. I see that it says here unstable. Are you able to hear me?
Sometimes.
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Okay. So the Bible here, Yechezkel, is moving even further than the Tochacha, but he's basing it on the Tocha. Lachain, therefore, avot yochlu banim bitochech. Children, fathers will eat children, which is a direct quote from the Tochacha, from Leviticus 26, as we saw. But then he goes a step further. Ubanim yochlu avotam. Children will eat their fathers. This is something that we have not yet seen. Ve'asiti becha shfatim. Again, the use of the word asiti, asiti, asitis. That's at least 6 times here. The word asiti, asiti, and it's going to be le'enei hagoyim. Again, a reversal of Yetziat Mitzrayim. The exodus from Egypt was so that the nations of the world would see that v'yad'u ki ani Adonai, that I am the Lord who runs the world, shows providence, and saves the Jewish people. And here, God is going to punish the Jewish people in front of all the nations because of what they did. The text now continues, and again, it is riffing, that God is going to destroy the temple because of the avodah zarah that the Jewish people did. And here too, Lachain chai ani, verse 11, Ne'um Adonai Elohim, im lo ya'an et mikdashi timeta. You have defiled the temple, b'chol shikutzecha, b'chol tovatecha, v'gam ani egra, I will also take away, v'gam lo tachoseni, v'gam ani lo echmol. So I am not going to show mercy. You treated the temple as a place to defile and do your avodah zarah. So I'm going to destroy the temple, as I said in chapter 26. And now he unpacks the mashal at the beginning of chapter 5. That last mashal that requires more unpacking than the others. Shlishitich badever yamut uberav yuchlu bitochech. A third of you will die in the city of pestilence and of famine. That's the language straight from Vayikra Chavav. We saw that God is going to send Dever and Ra'av. 10 women are going to not have enough to make one bread, as it says there, in an oven. So there's going to be death in the city. V'hashlishit b'cherev yiplu svivoteich. A third will die b'cherev, just as it says in chapter 26, that God will send a cherev after them. V'hashlishit l'chol ruach ezareh v'cherev arik acharehem. And a third I will send into Galut and chase them with the sword. Exactly the same language that's used in Leviticus 26. And at this point, the text continues. V'chala api v'anichoti chamati bahem v'hinchamti v'yad'u ki ani Adonai dibarti b'kinati v'chaluti chamati bam. Again, they will learn, as opposed to the nations of the world, which were the recipients of the knowledge after Yetziat Mitzrayim. Now the Jewish people are going to receive the knowledge. They're the ones who are going to receive the knowledge. They're the ones who are going to receive the knowledge Etn It'll be a place of desolation, just like chapter 26 said it will be a place of desolation. Because God has sent his sword of Ra'av and Dever and all of the various things that we spoke about. So basically, just to sum up, this chapter is basically an attempt by Yechezkel to say, so to speak, two things. Number one, you've been even worse than the Goyim around you. Number two, the Tochacha is going to happen in real time on your watch. And number three, even after the destruction, there's going to continue to be suffering. It's a very, very dark and difficult parak. Im Yirtzeh Hashem, next week I'll have my regular computer, and I hope we won't have any of the technical difficulties, and every word will come out clear, and hopefully that will be. I want to wish everybody a wonderful week, and it'll be better. Kol Tuv.
Thank you very much.
Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach. We'll see you next Hanukkah. Yeah, we'll see you at Hanukkah.
Yes.
Kol Tuv.
And have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you.